talk. Hello, everyone. I am so glad that you are joining us for the Star Wars Reads Day with the Augusta Library. We are having a great day so far. Everything's been running pretty much okay. But with me now, I have Jeffrey Brown, who is a multi talented person. He is known for being a cartoonist. He has several publications out, both in Star Wars and in another series that he has. He is an Ignatz winner in 2003 for Outstanding Mini Comic. He also won back to back Eisner Awards in 2013 for Darth Vader and Son, and in 2014 for Vader's Little Princess. He has directed an animated music video. He has been a co-writer in a featured film, Save the Date, back in 2012. He has done everything. So without further ado, ta-da, Jeffrey Brown. Yay. We are so glad you are here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a cartoonist, so that means I both write and draw the comics I make. And it's something I've been doing like my whole life, basically. I think you and I were talking about this earlier, and you said, I've been doing this forever, and that's basically true. So actually I have some of my childhood art, and you can see like I was always making little books. Like this one's called Space Patrol to the Rescue. And I loved writing and drawing and telling stories.
And you actually made it as a book. That's so cool.
Yeah, because I think as a kid you don't always understand that you make the thing and then it gets copied into the books, and so I just always like to have the book that I made myself. So yeah, lots of science fiction and fantasy stuff.
Show the one that you did it for. The picture you did it for.
Yeah,
I think it's so
I can
cute.
show you some of my Star Wars was one of actually the big influences of me drawing, because first of all, the story just was inspiring, and like I saw the movies and played with the toys. But then I got, one of the nice things about Star Wars is you get to see all the Ralph McQuarrie concept art and like the Joe Johnston storyboards, and so those really inspired me too. But yes, I've been enjoying Star Wars since I've seen Star Wars. So this is
I love that
Darth
one
Vader.
When he showed me earlier. I loved it. I had to have you show that one.
And then
so adorable. I love it.
Kept at it, got a little better.
Wow.
Of course, growing up in Michigan, Hoth was like my favorite planet, with the ice planet. And then
How old were you when you drew that one?
Don't know. Sometimes my mom, the reason I have all these drawings is my mom saves everything. So she had boxes and boxes of my childhood art, and every once in a while I go through and pull out ones that I really like or think are really funny. Sometimes she dates them, but this one is not dated, but I would guess I was probably like 8 or 9, probably.
So did you take art lessons, or is this something extremely natural to you?
I mean, I think it's both. I did take art lessons. So there's a school in my hometown, Grand Rapids, the Kendall College of Art and Design, and sometimes they would have summer camp classes, and so they'd have comics classes, and so I took art classes there. As I got older, I was an art major in college, and then actually ended up moving to Chicago to get my Master of Fine Arts at the School of the Art Institute. So I've had lots of actual school for art, but it's also, a lot of it is just like, whenever I had free time as a kid, I would draw. Even when I was watching cartoons, I would be drawing. When I'd be taking notes in class in high school, I would always draw with my notes. And so drawing was just a constant part of my life, and like that practice is just as important as all the tips and tricks you can get from your formal training. It's really both sides of it that really kind of brought me to where I am.
When you told your mom that you wanted to do this for a living, being a mom, I'm real curious. What did your mother say, or your parents say?
I mean, I'm very fortunate that my parents were always really supportive of my art. I don't know if I can tell what, So you can see like all the paper I draw on. So like my parents would just give me stacks and stacks of scrap paper of just random, whatever random stuff they had. And I would just draw like on every paper. So like from there all the way through college, they did kind of, kind of try to nudge me. They're like, maybe you could take some like a class on computer art design, like something with more practical, like
In case
application,
this didn't work
like
out.
something that you could actually use, like, and but when I self-published my first comic that I wrote while I was in art school, book called Clumsy, which is not for kids, just to be warned, but it's like an adult book about being in a relationship, young and in love, and I self-published, and the reason I was able to self-publish is my parents actually like helped pay for that printing, and I still overdrew my bank account, but like they put their money where their mouths were, like they believed in me, and
That's awesome.
so I've been really fortunate that I've always had their support all the way from when I was little.
And you have done a lot. When I was pulling up, and you and I talked about this, your bio, I mean, it's just keeps going. I mean, and that's awesome that you are versatile enough to not only do Star Wars, but you do other things as well. And on your website, you talk about, let's talk about briefly you have another series out.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, you've
So
got Darth Vader and Son series, which is a
mhm,
really cute series. I loved it. The Jedi Academy,
mhm.
about being in school and the bullying and adapting with classes. Great middle school book. I loved it. But Lucy and Andy Neanderthal, talk about that one
Yeah.
for a moment.
Yeah, so I ended up, I did three books in the Jedi Academy series, and those were so much fun. But I got to the point where I had drawn 3 Jedi Academy books. I had 4 books in the Darth Vader series, and then I was doing other Star Wars art for magazines and calendars and notebooks and pajamas and all these other things. And I was like, I love Star Wars, but this is maybe like I also like to do other things. And I've always been really interested in science, and um, I always liked cavemen when I was growing up too. Like I always like watched the Flintstones and things, and I got really interested in the science behind that. Actually, I have another prop I can show.
Sure.
This is my Neanderthal stone knife, and it does not look like a knife at all, but um,
That's authentic?
that is authentic.
Oh, that's
Or
so
this
cool.
this one might not actually be old enough to be from Neanderthal, so it might just be like an early human. But yeah, like the fact that this was what people in the Stone Age used as their tools was something that was so fascinating to me. And I was like, how can I merge that with just a goofy, fun story for kids? And so that's where I came up with the idea for Lucy and Andy Neanderthal. And you can see in the back of each chapter, there's 2 paleontologist characters that kind of talk about the science of how we know that this was a stone knife made by humans living, thousands of years ago. And so
That's cool.
in the story, you'll see Lucy and Andy, their brother and sister, growing up in the Stone Age, and you see them, they learn how to make stone tools, and then the paleontologists kind of talk about the science behind it. And so like it really merged like the two of these interests, like having fun and like being goofy, and like like sibling rivalry, but
Yeah, I
then
noticed that.
also
I noticed
yeah.
it because Lucy's the older one. And
Mhm,
so, of course, the little brother has to, no,
yeah,
no, it's Neanderthal, not Neanderthal. Yeah, that was cute.
yeah. And so yeah, yeah, so that was a fun series. And then I did 3 books in that series, and then I just actually started my new series, which is called Space Time. So it's
Show
another science fiction
that
series,
one.
and it's about Jide and Petra, and they're 2 humans that are going to explore the universe on a spaceship full of other aliens who are also kids, and some robots. And yeah, so the first book is out, and I'm just finishing the second book in that series.
Wow. That is amazing, actually, that you just seem to be so full of ideas. How do you put let's go back to the Star Wars. With the Star Wars books that you did, were you limited on what you could use because of copyright or the Star Wars people coming and knocking on your door?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yes. Like so, doing the Star Wars books, it's all officially licensed. So I knew that I didn't want to, do a parody of Star Wars. I wanted to use the actual characters and get to draw them and use the actual scenes and lines from the movies. And so Lucasfilm is actually involved at every step of the way. So like the first step, like in the Vader books, is always I got this used or an old vintage blank journal to use as my book of ideas. So I just fill it with all these ideas, and then Lucasfilm goes through, looks at all of them, and they tell me which ones they like, which ones maybe need something more or need something different, and which ones, like they're like, no, that doesn't really fit with the Star Wars universe. And sometimes I'll draw ideas that I just like just for fun, that I know will never make it into the books, whether but just part of the creative process is just like any idea, I'm gonna write it down, and sometimes like those ideas I know aren't going to make it in turn into a different idea. And so Lucasfilm looks at all the ideas, they approve all the ideas, and then I do pencils. They approve the pencils, and then I do the final artwork where I ink and color, and then that's all approved. So they're involved at every step. But at the same time, I've had a lot of freedom in terms of what I can do, because the books aren't really part of like the actual Star Wars storyline. They kind of sit outside of it. So I have probably a little more freedom than I would otherwise. So it's been a really great balance. And I think being like having grown up as a huge Star Wars fan, it wasn't that difficult for me to like fit my ideas into what they would want anyway. So, it's like I know the material so well that it was never a thing where I had some weird idea that wouldn't really fit with Star Wars. Like my idea of Star Wars is pretty much what Star Wars already is. So
Are you under contract to do, if you can talk about it, do any more Star Wars? Do you have any more Star Wars projects down the road?
I do. There's always more. There's always more. So I've been doing calendars every year. So every year there's Chronicle Books puts out a new calendar, and I always do 3 or 4 new images for those calendars. So they're a mix of stuff from the books, stuff that was kind of promotional material, and then there's some new stuff. And then I'm working on a new book, and it hasn't been officially announced yet, so I can't really talk about
but
it.
You can tell us. We won't tell anybody, really.
It's in the Vader series, and so sometime you'll hear about it. It should be out next year, toward the end of the year, I think, but stay tuned for that. So
is it? And you can always go to his website. It's Jeffrey, what is it? JeffreyBrown.com?
JeffreyBrownComics.com. Comics. Yeah, and it's in need of updating, but between everything that's gone on this year, I don't know about everybody else, but
yeah, we won't.
Life went crazy, but I still have the same deadline somehow. So like just I figure for me, like as much as I know that like having the website and everything like all set up is important. Like for me, like all I really care about is drawing fun comics. So I'm like, I'll get to it someday.
Well, you have 2 sons, you told me, and the 14-year-old probably knows computers inside and out. It seems like all the kids do. Hire him.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. He has other interests. So
that's okay. Like, he's allowed to.
Like we'll see. Once he really starts realizing like that he could use more money, then then he'll be like, oh, maybe Dad can hire me for a project.
Especially when he gets his driver's license.
Yeah. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Tell me your typical day. How do you, as you're planning, I mean, not necessarily like what time you get up, but how do you proportion your day with, I mean, that takes a lot of detail. When
Mhm.
you showed that empty book and said, yeah, here's my ideas, it looked just like a graphic novel. I mean, it was amazing what
Yeah.
you're considering just details putting down. So what is your typical day like?
I mean, so yeah, usually I start out, after the kids are all set and ready for school and everything, and then I usually start out, depending on what my email and the business or the logistical side of things is, like I might, take care of some of that. But then I just get to drawing. I usually draw like all morning. Currently just drawing at home, but in the past I would draw a lot I would go out to the coffee shop for my morning drawings, just to get out of the house and see the world. Um, and then I usually, take a break around lunchtime. I've been able to play some pickup soccer again, so that's
That's fun.
kind of nice for now. So hopefully things are stable enough that I can keep doing that, because that's a good brain cleaner for the middle of the day, and then come back, draw more until the kids are done with school and we do dinner and bedtime. And then I usually stay up after everyone else goes to bed here and work some more. That's kind of my day. But I find that I do a lot of thinking even when I'm not working. So like at night when I'm falling asleep, sometimes I'll just think about a story like that I'm working on, like one of the projects. And especially if there's like something I'm trying to figure out, where like, how do I get these characters to meet in a way that makes sense for the story, or like, or if there's a problem with the narrative, like I'll just think about that at night as I fall asleep. Or, when I'm just walking somewhere, like, running an errand. So I do a lot of thinking about different projects too, which is another way that kind of, it's a
Sounds like the
different way
characters
of,
are constantly
yeah,
knocking on your head going, hi,
for sure.
here's an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And then also I try to, I just try to observe the world too, and like stay aware of things. And because you never know, like when you'll see something or hear something that will spark some idea. And so for me, like I always like to have lots of ideas churning around for different projects and things. And then you never know when like two things will click together in a way that like you're like, aha, and then, go write those down.
I can see you doing multiple projects at once. A friend of mine, Kevin J. Anderson, calls it the popcorn theory, where it's constant, you've
Yeah.
got this one going out because you can't do one thing, stop, and then do another thing. And you sound like that. You sound like the
Yeah.
popcorn man who's got multiple things going on at one
And
time.
I also find, because even I've done this, I guess, as my career for almost 20 years now, but like even now, like I'll get writer's block or artist block. And so I like to have projects that are in different states. So like it's always good when I can be like doing the ideas for a Vader type book, or doing the final artwork. So like this is the picture book I did, and I did the artwork as a similar kind of style,
Wow.
or like similar materials to the way that I did the Darth Vader books. And so like this is kind of like very much about drawing and like making the art. And then whereas writing the Jedi Academy books or the space-time books, like that's very much about the writing side of things. Like it's thinking about the story. And so it's like using slightly different parts of my brain, even though they're all contributing to the story in the end. Like it's very different feeling to be drawing like the Jedi Academy books to drawing the Darth Vader books. And so I like being able to go, like if you get stuck on one, then you have the other way of thinking, and work that way for a while, and then you go back kind of refreshed to the other one.
That's a great idea, because that way you're not stuck on one thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think that with writer's block, once you're stuck, if you don't change, you're not going to get past the stuck.
Yeah.
So I think that's,
yeah, it's always good.
And again, looking at
Yeah.
your list of everything that you've done, I can You do more than one book a year, so or one more than one project, I guess I should say, a year. And for those of you who want to ask questions who are watching, pop them into the chat, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, because we are streaming on both. I will get those questions and I will post them to Mr. Brown. We have a question from our Jedi Master Jonathan. Were you approached to write the Star Wars initially, or were you asked to be an illustrator first?
Yeah, so the how I got involved with Star Wars is actually one of those really long and twisty stories that like I couldn't have planned it. Like it was my childhood dream, was like one of my childhood dreams was like drawing for Star Wars and like getting to do the concept art or something. But what happened was, most of my comics before I started doing Star Wars were autobiographical adult comics about everyday life. And what happened was Google was thinking about doing, the Google homepage has the Google Doodle,
Oh,
and so
yeah, yeah.
sometimes different holidays and things.
Hmm.
So they had the idea of doing something with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and how awkward an everyday moment between them would be. Like so, like in my autobiographical comics are all about like the most awkward, embarrassing everyday life moments. And so I had actually met the guy that runs the Google Doodle team years before he worked at Google, and I was just doing like these mini comics. And now he's working at Google, and they have this idea, and he thought, who might do something fun with this is this Jeffrey Brown. And so he reached out to me, and I was like, oh, this sounds like a great idea. And like, like their idea was, like if Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader had to like go grocery shopping together, how funny and awkward that could be. And my son Oscar was 4 at the time, and I thought, oh, it'd be really fun if Luke was 4 and Darth Vader was like I just basically put Darth Vader in my shoes, and like he's like, trying to get him to go to bed or pick up his toys. And so I did up a bunch of sketches and sent them to Google, and they really loved them, but they were like, they decided not to use them for whatever reason. They decided to not use the idea, and I was really disappointed. But I thought, I'd worked with Chronicle Books before, and I knew Chronicle Books had done a lot of Star Wars books and Lucasfilm books, and I thought maybe Chronicle could take this idea to Lucasfilm and see if they wanted to do it as a book. And so I did some more drawings, and my editor at Chronicle took it to Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm liked it. And so like it was really lucky timing. It was before Disney had bought them, and it was a time where they were like, sure, yeah, let's do it. And before Darth Vader and Son came out, Scholastic had gone to Lucasfilm, and they were like, we want to do a middle grade Star Wars series about like middle school but set in the Star Wars universe. And it happened that my editor at Lucasfilm, J.W. Rinsler, said, well, I'm working with this guy on this Darth Vader and Son book. You should ask him if he'd be interested in doing this middle grade book. And so Scholastic reached out to me about Jedi Academy, and I was like, that also sounds like a great idea. And so then I kind of lucked into that project as well. And so it's really funny, like it's
so from like 2012 to 2018, you didn't see your family. With all the
well, no, I
writing.
saw them a lot. I used them for my material all the time. So I'm like, it's like, come on, kids, say something funny so I can.
As long as you paid them royalties, you're good.
Well, they're fed and they have a house to live in, so I have fair trade, I think.
That's a cool story though, because you never know when an opportunity is going to present itself.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's not something I like. I don't think I could have. I don't think I even know how I would have approached Lucasfilm to like draw something for Star Wars otherwise. And yet it was like everything like that I did, and like I was just focused on making the art that I felt strongly about and art that I wanted to make led to those things anyway. So it's kind of like, I think I always say, like, you you may never work with Lucasfilm, you may work with Lucasfilm, but the best way to go about getting published or anything is just to make the art that you want to make and make it the best that you can, and like that's your best chance of actually having something happen.
And if you hadn't have networked the way you had, knowing a person who knew a person, you know, networking is very key, I guess,
Yeah,
especially I guess as a cartoonist.
yeah, and it's weird because I never thought of it as networking, and I think networking sometimes, like, people like it, like
Yeah, it's
maybe
not a bad thing.
like it's funny because, you know, it's just, you know, he was just a nice person I met at a comic convention, and I can't
Right.
remember if he gave me his mini comics or if we traded or if he bought mine and gave me his, and or if I bought his, or, you know, and that just happened. And it turned out actually that when the project came to Lucasfilm the first time, there was someone at Lucasfilm who I had done some work for, um, their girlfriend, and uh, like, you know, again, it was just like a project, like this is an interesting project and like a little illustration job, and it was fun. And but then when, you know, when the idea for Darth Vader and Son came to Lucasfilm, then he was like, oh, I know this guy's art, like I think this would be great. And, you know, so like
Yay.
it's just, you know, working hard and just being a good person, I guess, like does pay off.
True. True. You should never be. I just don't believe in being mean anyway. So I have another question from our rebel princess Erin. How does your approach differ when drawing, say, a single image versus illustrating an entire story?
Um, it's a big difference. You know, like coming up with the gags for like a book like Darth Vader and Son. I don't like, they're just, it's just all contained in one little moment, and I don't really have to worry about how it fits in with everything else. Whereas like with I'll show you a little bit of my process here again. Um, like so with the longer books, with the longer narratives, you have to make sure that before you ever even start drawing, I have to make sure that the story makes sense. So, you know, I start out with lots of work on making outlines, and I rework the outlines over and over, like multiple versions.
Wow. It's like
Just
building a puzzle.
yeah, just you know, rewriting it,
Wow.
and you can see, like, you know, make changes, and then until I get like a page by page script. And then even then, the I still have to I do a first draft, which, you know, is, for the first drafts are usually like stick figures, really rough, because I don't want to spend too much time drawing, because I know there's going to be all kinds of story problems before I do the second draft. So this is a second draft of Jedi Academy, and you can see
Oh,
a
wow. Look
lot
at the detail in
lot
that.
lot more finished and a lot more detail. And then, you know, then you go all
That's
the way to
amazing.
the final art, which is drawn on Bristol, and this is a page from the new series also.
So
um
when you submit your work, you submit those, like the actual drawings?
so I scan and send the digital images. But so yeah, so like I have to scan the entire rough first draft, send it to my editor, and my editor gives me all the notes about all those story problems and issues and things that could be changed or might need help, or
So you
places
don't
where
do
the
any illustration on a
basis.
computer?
I do a little bit of correcting. So like, so sometimes like, um, you know, even though I, I even when you know, like, proper grammar, proper spelling, like there's like, you'll be amazed when you're writing how many mistakes you'll make. And it's because your brain will see it and just correct it for you. So you're
Mhm.
like, it looks correct to you because your brain is like, your brain knows that that's how it's spelled. But
Yeah.
the actual physical writing you did was not spelled correctly. So like a lot of spelling corrections and rewording and punctuation fixes I'll just do in Photoshop on the computer. But um, I like to redraw things if it's I'll just redraw a panel if I need to redraw a panel. I don't generally do much correcting with the computer. I still like to do like analog.
I think that's great. Sometimes tactile is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Question number 3 from Miss Aspasia, and I do not want to mispronounce that. She is such a sweet lady. Do you think you'll ever write a non-illustrated book?
I've thought about it, and I don't know that I will. Like, I think even if I was going to write a mostly prose book, it would still have drawings with it. I just, I love storytelling, and I love writing, and I love drawing, and like writing and drawing together, like it just, they just are so attached for me. Like I can't, like, it's hard for me to like write something. And also I think, um, if I'm honest with myself, I'm maybe not a good enough writer to just write. Like the drawings do something, I think, in my work that I don't know how to do with just words. I feel like with comics, especially, there's a lot of expressiveness and emotion and feeling you can get, that it is different from how those things come across in prose books. And not that there aren't books that do that, or writers that can get a lot of emotion in their words, but
Mhm.
I think for me, like, just there's just something about comics that just, it feels like the right way for me to express these ideas.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I know that when I went and checked out all the books, literally, like I had a stack here at the house and I was going through them. I mean, I love the stories that go with the comic, but I don't think you give yourself quite enough credit. The stories are actually really cute. I do like them. Question number 4. We're going to go back to Master Jedi Jonathan. Is there any author or illustrator you would love to collaborate with?
Hmm.
And and anything that you had, whether it's Star Wars or not?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, like, off the top of my head, I don't think I could name someone. I mean, I've I've really haven't collaborated other than some of the film work I've done. That's obviously such a more collaborative process, and is an entirely different beast. But in terms of writings for someone, or drawing someone else's story, like, there's friends over the years that I've thought about working with, but then it's just that everyone ends up being so busy that like you just end up talking about, like, someday let's do this idea.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's for me, it's more like someday I could envision there being a project come along, and um, whether it's someone writing it and having me draw, I think that's probably the more likely scenario. Um, is Yeah, maybe that'll happen someday. But I mean, there's lots of writers I would love to to do something with,
That would
probably.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, I could think of several right off the top of my head, but I'm not going to name names. But I could see some pretty cool books coming out of that. You're so creative and so, like, when you're doing your rough draft panel, who does your initial? Do you let your wife read through it first before you send it off, or does
No,
she have
once in
no?
a while, I've let the kids, my son who's 13 now, and I have a 7-year old, like, I might let them look at things once in a
Mhm.
while, but in general, it's just me, and then my
Okay.
editor is the first person to, like, really see it, and give me the feedback. And it's worked pretty well, I think, for
Okay.
like, I think it would be easy for me to just suddenly, like, have way too many voices in my head giving feedback on something that
And
I
your
don't think.
editor already
Yeah.
knows the process too. He'll know what will work and
Yeah,
what won't.
yeah, I mean, she's really smart, and is really great. Her name's Phoebe A, and she's been an editor for a long time and has a ton of experience. And she can, we've gotten to the point now where she, like, she can just say, like, this part's moving slow, or sometimes she might say, like, can we lose these 3 pages, and I'm like, no, we can't lose those 3 pages, but I know what you mean.
No,
Like I
don't
figure
kill
out
my
the fix.
baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's harder in comics to like, you can't just chop out a panel always without now
Now
the
there's no
entire
continuity.
composition of the page changes and then the next page. And like, so, but yeah, she's really great about like making sure that the story is tight and like that there's nothing extraneous that isn't like, you know, goes back a lot to like, how does this like, this joke is funny, it's great, Jeff, but how does this relate to the story at all? Because if it doesn't relate to the story,
Oh,
then
okay.
we can think about, do we really need it here? And I've learned too that like a lot of times like to not be so attached to a joke because it's really a really good joke or something, that I was like, oh, I'll just table that and save that for, you
It
know,
goes in your other book of ideas that you're
it
going to
could
get to.
it could pop like it could pop up that, oh, it actually fits really well in this other chapter, or it fits
Right.
well in the next, it'll actually work out really well to use that in the next book or an entirely different series. So yeah.
I am now itching to, wrote it down. I'm ready to go get your newest book now. It's like, okay, I need to go find this book. Okay, here is another question. Your Vader comics are eerily relatable. Do you draw a lot of inspiration from real life or personal experiences with your kids when you draw?
Oh yeah, for sure. And so especially with Darth Vader and Son, so like I can do some a drawing
Sure,
demonstration
that
here.
would be great.
So I actually have a book called Kids Are Weird that's basically just goofy stuff that my son Oscar said when he was like first putting sentences together, until like when the sentences started making enough sense that they weren't just funny for whatever reason. But I'll show you, this is how I always drew cartoon Oscar. Kind of like this.
Yeah, see, I do ugly stickmen, so that's so cool watching someone else draw.
So that's kind of a basic Oscar. It's a like
Oh, that's
drawing.
so
I'm not used to
cute.
drawing from behind the paper, but and
I
so
think it looks
Darth Vader
great.
and Son is basically, I just took all the situations from my own life with Oscar when he was 4. And so if you look at cartoon Luke, he's basically the same as Oscar, except he gets this 1970s kind of haircut.
Mark Hamill will be proud.
And then of course he gets to, you know, wear his Jedi robes.
The Jedi outfit.
But
when I read the first one and he was so heartbroken that he couldn't be a pilot and had to go to Jedi school, it's like, dude, you get a lightsaber. So this came up in another panel, so I thought I would ask, what color would your lightsaber be?
I would probably have a blue lightsaber.
Is blue your favorite color?
Blue is my favorite color. I know it's pretty predictable there.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
You know, but I would accept any color lightsaber. Really, I'm not.
Would too. Would that not be cool?
Yeah.
I say that I would not be allowed to take it to work, but it would be fun. They would. I work in a high school, so they probably think,
yeah.
Oh God, we're not messing with her.
Maybe in the wood shop.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Wood burning. That would be so cool. Can you imagine fencing? Having a fencing class with lightsabers.
I think there are some groups that, like, I mean, obviously not real lightsabers, but they basically do like sword fighting, fencing.
There's one here where I live locally, in Aiken, South Carolina, that actually do that too. I've seen them in like a demo show that they do. But can you imagine actually going to their studio and that would be fun. That would be fun. All right. Another question. What do you like the most about writing and illustrating sci-fi and science-based stories?
I don't know if there's one part that I like the most. I mean, at different times, different parts are fun. So like with the Neanderthal series, I spent a year basically just reading about Neanderthals and Stone Age life, and watching like BBC documentaries and Discovery Channel shows and
I love those
reading
shows.
science articles. And so that was really fun because I was just like, it's basically like taking a class, but I didn't have to worry about getting a grade, or, you know, like I didn't have to get
That's always good.
I didn't get tested on it, although we did have a guy who went through the books. He's I think he's teaching now at USC, but at the time he was a graduate student at and was working with the Field Museum, and he went through and like double checked all the science, and like so sometimes he would come and say like, all right, this, I see what you're saying here, and like but it's not exactly right. And so that was like a fun challenge, actually, was like taking all the science that I was learning and how to translate that in a way that would be digestible for kids without becoming inaccurate. And so I love that part of it. But then it's also fun, like just drawing goofy faces, and like, you know, the kids are always like tripping, and like Andy especially is always kind of a klutz, and he's always like falling down the hill into a mud puddle,
and his sister laughing at him.
And then of course science fiction, just getting to draw aliens and weird stuff is probably it probably has to be the best part about that.
And you get to make up your own aliens, because you never know what's out there.
Yeah.
I noticed that your last book with Lucy and Andy Neanderthal is Bad to the Bone, and that was in 2018. Do you have another one of those coming up? Or I could see that series growing. It was cute.
Yeah, so as much as I loved the science part of it, eventually it became a part where, one, like I had put so much of the science into those 3 books that I was like, what else can I put in there? And then I was also just ready, you know, like I think I'm a little restless in that, like I like to like explore characters and worlds for a while and then move on to something else. But Lucy and Andy are really fun. And so actually in the back of each volume of Space Time, I have a new Lucy and Andy short story.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so
now I'm definitely getting the book.
And those are fun too, because, you know, like in the same way someone asked earlier about, you know, the difference between writing the single panel comics versus the longer stories.
Right.
And so writing these Lucy and Andy stories are really great because they're so short that they're just kind of self-contained. Whereas the longer Lucy and Andy books, I kind of had to have like a bigger story happening, and what's going on with Lucy and Andy, and how do they change over the course of the book, and how does their relationship change, and with the short story, I can just, you know, it's kind of like an extended single panel comic, so it's still a little easier than writing like the longer books, where you have to worry about how the plot is moving along and how everything fits together.
So when you're writing in a series, making sure that what happened in book 1, what the character does, and with that continuity getting to book 3, book 4, how do you keep all of that straight? How do you keep, like, you don't want something to happen and then in book 3, there's no way that could have possibly have happened at that point, or vice versa?
I mean, part of it is just you try to find ways to like leave openings, I think, for characters to change and grow. So like in Jedi Academy, let me see if I can bring up let's see if I can find a picture of some of the characters. So I knew that Roan and Pasha would kind of become friends, and that Guyana and Bill would be like their other close friends. So like, you know, like I kind of knew that would happen. But then there's this guy Cyrus, and there's another kid Corona, who are kind of like the Sith. They're like kind of like the bullies. And what happened was kind of organic. Like over the course of the book, Corona definitely became a bully, but he's more a bully out of his own insecurity. And Cyrus kind of realizes like, like he was a bully just because he wanted to be like really cool and the best, and he realizes like he doesn't need to be a bully to do that. And so their characters kind of change over the course of the books, but I had to like kind of leave it open where I didn't trap them and kind of not leaving them room to grow as characters.
Right.
And so I
That
think,
gives you, and that's
yeah.
true. I can see the flexibility in that. That's pretty good. That's great. That's a great way to approach it, actually. I have, we're getting close on time, but I've got one more question. Growing up, what were your favorite books?
Oh, I
Your
had
favorite children's
so
books?
many favorite books. But I'll grab one in a second, but I loved Roald Dahl's
Yes.
books. I love The Hobbit, and The Lord of the Rings were favorites. I loved just like all kinds of picture books like Maurice Sendak and Edward Gorey, all any kind of illustrated weird picture book. But my favorite book growing up, I'm going to grab it a second.
Okay. That's cool. He's got it like right there and he's going to pull it out. Oh, there it is.
It's
I haven't heard of that
book
one.
called Small in the Saddle by Mark Allen Stamati.
Okay.
And it's out of print, unfortunately, but you can find, he has some other books that are back in print. There's a book called Yellow Yellow, and Who Needs Donuts is probably the best known book. But he has just like such weird, funny drawings, and you can see like,
Oh, wow.
there's little characters in the hat and they're talking, and
it's almost like an Alice in Wonderland type of setup.
Yeah. And so this book was just I thought it was so funny, and like it's kind of like uses a lot of the form of comics, even though it's like a picture book, which is kind of the like one of the inspirations for the way I did my picture book. Is you can see like it's a lot of it has it's less like a picture book where it's like narration and then pictures.
Right.
It's more like
My teacher
kind of
is
like
a robot. Yes, that's
yeah,
what students think of teachers. Really
yeah, so
do.
this is one of my favorite books when I was
That
a
is
kid.
so cool that you still have it. Are there any cartoonists you credit with having a major influence on you?
There's too many to list, but so I guess current cartoonists, so Chris Ware and Julie Doucet are two kind of more adult cartoonists that were big inspirations. There's a lot of different art forms actually that have kind of influenced and inspired me. So like I really liked Monty Python and the Kids in the Hall and kind of weird, goofy sketch comedy. There's a fine artist named Charlotte Solomon who did a series called Life or Theater, and unfortunately she died in the Holocaust. But some of the people that helped hide her at one point had all of her artwork saved, and it's just this beautiful series of kind of a semi-fictional version of her life story, and very expressive, and like it's not comics, but I feel like it skirts that line of what comics do in terms of getting a lot of emotion out of the drawings. Yeah, I mean, yeah, over the years, like
that brings back a lot of memory for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would always recommend people to go check it out. But really, I mean, like I try to read comics all the time, and like all kinds of different comics. And like right now with my younger son, we're reading all of Dave Pilkey's Dog Man books over and over again. And I feel like those are actually pretty inspiring to me, even though there's not like a direct translation into like what Dogman would feed into my books. But like I feel like anytime you're reading something, you might take a little bit here or there, and it all adds up cumulatively.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, so I always recommend, one of the piece of advice I give to anyone who wants to get into making comics is to just read a lot of comics, and don't just read the things that you like. Try things that you think you don't like, or things that you like someone else might like that you thought wasn't very good, or just read all different kinds, and it'll all kind of feed into your own storytelling later.
Awesome. I think this has been such I cannot believe our time is up. I mean, this went by so quickly. You were such a gracious person. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us today on our Star Wars Reads
Yeah.
Day. I'd also like to do a shout out to the people behind the scenes who have been working tirelessly to make this happen. We have Leah Holloway, we have Aaron Prentice, Jonathan St. Martin's been jumping in and helping out. All of you guys, Ben has been doing great back there. Thank you to all the people behind the scenes. Again, thank you, Jeff, for coming. I hope everyone enjoyed our Star Wars Reads Day, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again sometime soon. Everyone
Yeah.
have a good night.
Yeah, thanks.